Ever since it was announced, the internet has been abuzz with speculation about the new Dungeons & Dragons virtual tabletop system. And for good reason. Wizards of the Coast have all but promised that it will be changing the face of RPGs forever. They have been pumping millions of dollars into this system and risking their company's future on the gamble that a digital D&D experience is something that people want. On the other hand, role players, Dungeons & Dragons groups, and creators like myself have all been worried that this virtual tabletop system could be used to Trojan horse further microtransactions into the hobby, monetize players aggressively, and ultimately cement the role-playing game hobby behind a paywall, closing off Dungeons & Dragons players from the rest of the RPG industry, ultimately leading to the end of role-playing. Basically, the Terminator movies. Yes, this could all be far more terrifying than even the OGL scandal. And today, we finally get to see whether or not the VTT will be a success, because the alpha is here and people have been playing it. Finally, we get to go hands-on with this virtual tabletop. So, does it play well? Are there microtransactions? Have the greatest fears of the RPG community been realized? Yes, is the answer. Yes. And thanks to a secret survey distributed to testers, we even know what's probably coming next for the system. So let's get right into it. So first things first, you will need D&D Beyond to use this VTT system. If you are a books-only type of DM or player, well, you'd best set yourself on fire and leap off the side of your local citadel, because the age of books is over. Now is the time for the orc! I mean, digital book. It's the time for the digital books. D&D Beyond is hooked into the VTT like a human battery plugged into the Matrix, and if you unplug too soon, you will die. The alpha test for the VTT came with 5 pre-made characters in D&D Beyond, and each of them came with their very own associated digital avatar or like miniature that could be used in that digital game world. Though, interestingly, there were space in each playgroup for 7 alpha testers, so there wasn't enough pre-generated characters for testers to use. I guess Wizards know their audience. Personally, I've never played a game where at least 2 people haven't cancelled last minute. What? That was a good joke. That was a good joke. You people only laugh when I say 9/11. But yeah, you can create a character in D&D Beyond and it will get linked up to the digital virtual tabletop system. These things are totally inseparable, and this makes a lot of sense because the VTT is designed not only to facilitate play over the internet, but also to encourage players to invest their time and their energy into the Hasbro Wizard infrastructure. They'll show you the sweeties, you just gotta get in the back of the van. A tale as old as time. Boy, the summer of '98 sure was a wild one. I'll never trust a Poke fan again. Interestingly though, local Rita Repulsa impersonator Chris Cow, head of digital monetization for Hasbro Wizards, he wanted to, quote, destroy D&D Beyond, according to leaks that emerged during the OGL scandal. So this relationship between the VTT and D&D Beyond looks like he might have lost a couple of boardroom battles since January, because D&D Beyond really seems to be here forever now. In terms of how the alpha actually plays though, the game doesn't use a grid-based movement system. Instead, when you pick up a miniature in the digital space, the system measures their movement via meters, similar to Baldur's Gate 3, which will not be the last time that I make that comparison, by the way. And of course, players don't control simple tokens and move them in a 2D space like a traditional virtual tabletop or pathetic flash-based kitchen table game. No, players have high-quality character avatars, and everything in the system is built as a fully rendered 3D model, and it's all entirely animated, including the terrain. And this goes even further than I thought it would go. For example, DMs in the alpha could have the digital tavern that the players meet in collapse in the game world. And that actually happens. The floor falls out from beneath the players' feet, and the models and the environment physically digitally change during the scripted event. So the VTT really does go beyond a DM merely describing an incident and all the players using their imagination or whatever, like what would happen at a regular table. So throw away your romance novel, cause you just got invited to the big moist orgy. I don't want to go to it. And this goes even further into the dice rolls and combat in the game. Attacks are fully animated. When you strike with your character, the digital models actually bash into one another. There are slick animations for spells, and when projectiles strike a model, they go whoosh, and the dice go flying out from behind the miniature when they're struck, rolling the damage dealt. It's all very slick, very swish, but also, to be a bit of a bore, kind of slows down the pace of combat, and that's a little bit of a concern when D&D combat can already be as slow as my grandfather trying to get out of the car to go back to the old folks' home. Get out, Granddad! I'll be back next week. Maybe. I mean, I've got a lot on. You won't remember anyway. Just like viewers won't remember to check into my channel next week for another video, so why not subscribe to make sure you never miss a thing, huh? There's that clawing desperation, so reminiscent of my grandfather. I just don't want to be forgotten. But aside from the fact that we all will one day face oblivion alone, players can see when enemies are bloodied, i.e. at 50% health, because it shows on the models, and that's kinda neat. NPCs have health bars, but only the DM can actually see the numbers. Pretty standard. And the Alpha Premium Adventure even comes with a big boss at the end. No, not you, naked snake. Ugh. It's a whole scripted scenario where an ankeg physically bursts from the underground in the center of the town, and it's all animated. The ankeg does actually burst from the ground on the screen. And all of this is cool. It's a spectacle. How can we not be in awe of this digital performance? These puppets dancing on their strings. But it does slide the RPG tabletop experience closer to that of a video game, feeling a lot like a combination of Tailspire, Fantasy Grounds, all mixed in with Baldur's Gate 3. And while cool, this has a hidden dark side. For example, the ankeg right now has no animation for its traditional acid splash attack. Therefore, it's weird when it attacks a player with this action in the VTT, because suddenly, unlike everything else, there's no animation, no event. And when monsters die, the DM simply has to delete them from the screen manually, like some sort of peasant. There's no death animation for that either. And that all feels uncanny, because there's an animation for everything else. When it's suddenly absent, it sticks out like a walking, talking gingerbread man at an evil baker's conference. And this explains where some of the millions of dollars gushing out of Hasbro Wizards have gone, because every monster, every player ability, every NPC, they are all going to need animations for this thing, and that feels like a lot of work and effort is being put into the aesthetic. And really, if we're honest, do animations and corny emotes really add a lot of value to a game of D&D? Does it add millions of dollars worth of value? Personally, I'm not convinced. But whether it does or not, this massive cash investment is going to demand that Hasbro Wizards recoup the loss somehow. Speaking of which, there's no customization of dice skins, even though everyone sees the dice that are rolled. That feels weird. Feels like that's something you could choose as a player. I wonder why there's no options yet. It feels like a little bit of an oversight. I think that dice skins would be the first thing people would want to customize. Okay, yeah, so I'm being cute. Obviously, they're going to sell dice skins, but to be honest, I was always wary about microtransactions in the system, and this alpha test has confirmed my greatest, most unexpected fear. Hasbro Wizards could, in theory, actually sell players power directly in this system without any input from the Dungeon Master. I originally thought that this was going to be super unlikely because the VTT system is directly plugged into D&D Beyond. It means that if you, as a player, were to buy a totally overpowered Blade of Onanism +2 and equip it to your character in D&D Beyond, that item gets replicated in the VTT, and everything within the VTT is handled automatically by the system. So if you command your character to strike a creature in the VTT with that Blade of Onanism +2 equipped, the system will roll the damage dice of your overpowered weapon. This means that in theory, the door is open to Hasbro Wizards if they do indeed want to sell power directly to players. And while people have of course said, no, they'll never do that, let's be real. If Hasbro's stock prices continues to dip, I could see them being tempted to sell special limited edition items to players because of the amount of money that it could make. It doesn't take everybody to buy into this system, just some people to pay a lot of money, and for everyone else to be apathetic about it. We see this in many hobby industries. And while lots of players may frown at this idea, I could see some problem players really loving it. So good luck then to the first time pickup group DM getting matched up with the squad of 5 buy-to-win characters in the Lost Mines of Phandelver. What an introduction to role-playing that will be, I'm sure. Adventures League certified. Thanks, Obama. But I must be honest, I don't see them selling power, at least not anytime soon. Rather, we'll likely see an extension of what they sell already on D&D Beyond. Aesthetic microtransactions. Sadly, at time of recording, I'm not sure what avatars or miniatures are available in the alpha, but no doubt costumes, dice, everything that they sell on D&D Beyond already will become normal items to buy in the VTT, even if the system uses a subscription fee. Speaking of which, we don't know yet if Hasbro Wizards will be charging for the VTT yet. The alpha didn't give anything away, although obviously the alpha was not behind a paywall. Personally, I don't think that the final product will be either. I suspect it will utilize a combination of microtransactions and then a luxury subscription model layered on top. You know, if they're smart, they're gonna want to onboard absolutely everyone into this system, and for that reason, the VTT will be available on desktop computers, tablets, and even mobile phones. Remember, Hasbro Wizards' goal is to transform every physical table to a digital one that they can monetize more effectively. After all, as the revealed numbers of their books has shown, people clearly aren't spending enough money on D&D books, according to WotC. Well, not to worry, because it's looking like we'll all need to buy our D&D books for a 4th time to use in the virtual tabletop system. As for alpha testers, there was a survey given out to them after the test that hints of what we can expect from the VTT in the future. A grid move option sounds likely, fog of war was floated, and player inventory management for the DM was also suggested too. Interestingly though, the bulk of the survey was focused on whether testers would like to see more interactive text in the environment, more impactful visuals and sound effects, more rules automation, more environmental changes as a result of story, and cinematic camera movements and camera control for the dungeon master to implement scripted events. And all of these elements, if they are implemented, will continue to push the virtual tabletop system even further into the video game territory. It's no surprise then that alpha testers who were very familiar with video games all seem to take to the VTT quite well, and that really concerns me. Personally, I'm not sure this VTT is something that I want, and I really think that it's going to be used as an excuse to nickel and dime players. This entire system represents a total paradigm shift, and I would be lying if I said that I wasn't hopeful that this gamble from WotC feels. I really don't want other RPG companies to think that they have to follow Hasbro Wizards on this, and even if they don't follow them, if this ends up being a mega success, it could lead to a centralization of the hobby around a single brand and put the entire industry at risk. And following on from the OGL scandal, do we really want Hasbro Wizards in control? Yikes. I want to thank Nerd Immersion for a lot of the information in this video. He went into more detail on the alpha test in his video. There's a link in the description. Go check him out. And if you enjoyed this coverage and want to see more, please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/discoursminiatures in order to support my work. You'll get exclusive videos like a review of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and hang out with me and a friendly community on Discord. And of course, a huge thanks to my patrons. Without you, this wouldn't be possible, especially Crypto Kev, Novani, and Travis Hunter. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye!